Alrighty, folks, today I have found some clips of Mr. Chris Bumstead, multiple-time Olympia champion in the classic physique division, recently retired, and I feel like he is this sort of idealized version of masculinity. Let's get to the episode. I'm going to respond to the clips, and you all can leave me some comments if you have any thoughts. Let's get to it.
What would you say as being the hardest for you, health or the anxiety that is brought on with living the life you live in? Or are they both two monsters?
I would probably say health and then my anxiety that comes along with my health.
Okay.
So all that ties into that for sure. But also what happened to me in 2018 is the reason why I am successful today. I believe that truly. I was scared for my health at one point. Yeah. I didn't know if I was going to live a normal life after, or let alone be able to bodybuild still. So I feel like sometimes I'm living on borrowed time almost. I'm just lucky to be here, and it makes me.
Ooh, he's pointed something really interesting here. I think when we have health scares, that can bring up a lot of different emotions for people. And the way he sort of flipped it or valenced it is that, I had this health scare. Things could have gone way worse. And so I am now going to treat this second half of my life as though it is borrowed time, as though I am sort of in this bonus time area where everything after this is just icing on the cake. And I think there are moments and times in our lives where we can look back on and just if things had went drastically different, we might not be here, number one. Number two, we might not be living the life that we are currently living. And so I think looking back on past health scares, past life events and circumstances that maybe were at the time absolutely it felt like we couldn't manage. I think for me, whenever I was dealing with the death of my father, and after, having cared for him for so long, that was something I felt at the time that it would just be so hard to recover from. I don't know that I could have in the moment said that I would be eventually as okay as I am right now. But now, with the benefit of hindsight, that is one of the moments that I credit, why I focus so much on my kids, why I focus so much on my work and my relationships, and I credit, the caretaking I did for my dad, and also what happened after his passing. And I'm sort of, living on borrowed time, not just for myself, but also for him.
Really enjoy where I'm at. And it forced me to kind of get out of my head of the fear of my control. So I have an autoimmune disorder, which can be anything can happen. You could be doing the best you can and it can just hit you. So you have to relinquish control of the things that are unknown. And that's a huge part of body.
He was going to say that's a huge part of bodybuilding, 100%. We must figure out the things that are in our control and out of our control, and disproportionately place a large amount of time into the things that are in our control. Do we have to put up with situations in our lives with people who disrespect us and who aren't kind to us and don't have our best interest at heart? Absolutely not. It is in your control to opt out of those relationships. It is in your control to find another job and opt out and go in that new direction. However, there are some things that are, in our control that we can take action on, and we should put our time and energy and emotions in that area.
It's a lot of people who don't have the self-awareness to understand how fleeting thoughts are. Negative emotions come and go and come up and down. A human being is a process, not a thing.
Oh man, what a bar. Human being is a process, not a thing. A human being isn't a state. It isn't just a one snapshot or moment in time. It's a process. To me, it's an iterated process. You try and refine and make just little steps and improvements day after day, action after action, and you try and accumulate those things. And the process is sort of this iterative thing. And what I mean by that is a slow refinement where you try and make better, 1% better every day. And eventually that's too much. And so it's 0.5% and 0.25 and on and on and on and on and on. And so I think Chris is speaking to just sort of the refinement in the human that happens with any sort of, bodybuilding specifically, or any type of self-improvement.
very much like highs and lows, and you're going up and down. And most people are like, when I'm high, this is everything. When I'm low, I'm negative, I'm depressed. And it's like, no, it's part of your process right now, and you're going to come back out of it. You're going to crave something for a little bit, and then it's going to go away. But if you don't have the self-awareness to understand that, it's going to be a lot harder to know.
Ooh, another good thing. He points to self-awareness. And again, this is me. How does one become self-aware? We have to be able to, one, begin identifying what we are feeling and experiencing in the moment. And so, as you can tell, he was using sort of a gesture as a metaphor, as sort of this up and down. And I think when we see that, we think of waves. And that's sort of what emotions are. They come on in these waves. And if we can sort of step out of the surf and just observe them, if we can be an observer on the beach and just see the waves sort of peak and crest and come back down and wash onto the shore, we can be an observer of our emotions. More often than not, I think people are wrapped up, they're on a boogie board and they are riding whatever that wave is, and it is not treating them well, and they are so wrapped up, they are their emotions. But if in your mind you can take that step back and just begin observing your emotions, that is when they lose control, and that is when you can get into the process of life.
Like even when you're in prep and you're going through a shit time, you're like, this is just part of my process right now. I'm going to go through hell for a few weeks right now, but I'm going to have a good week after that, and then a shitty one, and I'm just going to go up and down, and I just got to ride it out and do the best I can. Prep
is a beautiful metaphor for how we can sort of tackle our emotions. There are going to be ups and downs in preps. You are going to not lose weight at a rate that you wanted. You are going to experience hunger and non-satiety at levels that you didn't previously experience. And if we can step out of our experience and just observe and notice those emotions, those physiological sensations, we can get more attuned with the process of what prep is. And so that's a perfect mirror for our emotions. If you can just step back and observe, you will do yourself a good service in terms of affecting a good outcome.
My life, I've just like suppressed. You know, it was like very loving family, but we didn't like speak the wins a lot. I almost like blacked out on stage. You know, I was like, there was still some fear of my health, of being like, if this come up, you know, just suppress it, don't feel it. And I've done that a lot in my life. I've just like suppressed. You know, it was like very loving family, but we didn't like speak a lot, so I didn't learn how to like let my emotions out, communicate about it.
Yo, he's talking. I probably shouldn't have paused right there. I'm pausing too much. I apologize. It's just that there's so much good stuff with Bumstead here. Now he's talking about sort of his developmental environment. If you are in a family that doesn't discuss emotions, where the parents don't sort of work through difficulties in front of their children, the benefit of that is the pros, because there are pros and cons, there are trade-offs to everything. You have on the one hand, the kids don't have to see the sort of negotiation that goes on in a relationship, the to and fro, the ebbs and flows, the sort of emotional waves. However, on the other side, they don't get to see those things. They don't get to see how to negotiate your wants and needs. They don't see effective communication. And I think to Chris's point, if the way in which your family handled emotions was to suppress them, and you see that is what you are going to learn. Now, I do believe people have different personality factors that are going to play into this that make them more susceptible. Obviously, a lot of those things are heritable, but I think your early childhood environment is going to have a great impact on then how you express emotion down the road.
And then people think that's normal. That's men, you know. That's how you get through life with a chip on your shoulder. And it's like, well, I don't want to live with a chip on my shoulder. You know, I want to enjoy this. So the next year, the focus was on, all right, let's step back. Let's relinquish that pressure I spoke about of the unknown. If I do the best that I can, what's a mindset I can shift right now? And a weird thing that I think was different to me than a lot of champions competing was I wanted, and I did come to the conclusion to be okay with losing.
Ooh. I think that's a great mindset shift. Again, it comes back to what he was saying earlier, process. If your focus is on process, the outcome is what the outcome is. You don't have to focus on, I'm going to get on this stage and I'm going to win my pro card. That's a lot of pressure. For some, you know, I think it's motivating, and I think this speaks to sort of the inverted U model of motivation. For some, they need sort of that pressure, like I need to win. It's motivating, it gets them through the finish line. But you do that enough times and it's unsatisfying, especially if you're not winning. There's only one Bumstead, there's only one Arnold, there's only one Lee Haney, there's only one, yada, 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 generational talent at a time. And so for the rest of us who aren't generational talents, I think focusing on the process, focusing on not an outcome, focusing on your values and orienting yourself around just this sort of iterating, getting 1% better every time, and aligning your goals with your values and heading in a direction as opposed to a specific destination is going to be more beneficial to all of us in the long run.
I was literally like, well, what can you do with your life to be okay with losing? And I'm like, well, be my best, put in all my effort, do everything I can. I have no control of whatever else happens after that. Yeah. I can't make the judges make me win. I can't make people look worse than me when they come up. I can only look my best.
Yo, you can only look your best. You can only give all your effort. And that is another way to sort of avoid regret, whether it's on stage, whether it's with our relationships, whatever it is. If you empty the tank, if you burn the boats, no, but seriously, if you empty the tank, well, what left is there? What's left? If there's nothing left, you have nothing to regret. If you give a sort of half-assed measure, if you give half your effort, there is going to be infinitely more to regret. So I think, especially if you're in the bodybuilding community, giving your all in every single set, taking everything to zero RIR, I don't think that's an optimal way to go about things. But in terms of our planning and our preparation and the time we take, I think emptying the tank there will serve us in hindsight in the future by going, you know what? I'm good with third place. I did everything that I could.
Are you good? I'm like, yeah, why? I'm fine. Are you good? I'm like, yeah. Are you okay? And then I start bawling. I'm crying. And I'm like, she's like, what is it? I'm like, there's just so much shit going on. All this shit, people saying this, that. I got to win Olympias. This, I like, let it all out. And I'm like, holy, I didn't realize that was in there. And then I talk about it and I'm like, and she's like, okay, well, like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. She's like, well, of course you feel like this. Like, think of the shit that's on your plate right now. I'm like, I guess you're right. Yeah, like, it's just normal. Like, let me just sit in this and feel it right now. And the more I like allowed it to come up in me and feel it, it just slowly kind of like faded.
Again, back to emotions. The more you try and suppress an emotion, it's sort of like, I don't know, just if you could imagine in your mind, like beach balls in a pool. And those are all of our emotions. And we're sitting there, we're sort of floating with these beach balls. But let's say a lot of those beach balls are negative, maybe low mood, worry, this or that. When you try and suppress those beach balls in the pool, what happens? It takes a lot of your energy. And then number two, if you successfully force one beach ball down, another beach ball is going to come up. And so it's sort of, you start to suppress and suppress and suppress. And let's say you get all the beach balls down that make you feel bad. Eventually they're all going to come to the surface, and then you're going to either possibly erupt in anger, or you're just going to start to bawl because you didn't know that you were trying to control your emotional state so much. And I think that's what C-Bum is speaking to here. And sometimes it takes a good partner. And I want to shout out to all the good partners out there who ask 3 times whether or not you are good. Sometimes, and look, I'm going to do it for you right now. Are you good? You sure you're good? Are you sure you're good? Sometimes it takes a partner like that to make us feel safe enough. So to all partners out there, ask a few times. I know that type of thing, it can feel like we're bugging somebody, but if something is clearly bothering our significant other, it's okay to ask a few times. So, these are real things. We don't want to suppress. Feeling it is good. Back to it.
And now when it comes up, instead of me being like, just push that away, this is your life, you're Olympia, own it. I let that come up. If I have fear and stress and I allow myself to feel it, it just naturally kind of dissipates into wherever it goes. And then I feel a lot lighter afterwards. I feel more free. I feel like myself, and then I'm able to go on with my life and enjoy it. So it's been a journey for sure. I've had a lot of help with Courtney, my family. I have therapists I work with and shit.
Feel it. It's like a wave. Allow it to rise up, peak, and then crest. And then notice the next wave, or notice that the water is still. And you can come to stillness on your own.
You mentioned therapists. What do they do? Just an extra person to talk that's not connected to the world?
What do we do?
Yeah, I mean, a completely unbiased person who's going to give it to you. They obviously understand a lot, as much as people think that, a lot of people had a really rough childhood. A lot of people didn't. Like, that doesn't affect me. Like, that shit affects you. That affects every decision, every reaction that you have. Every reaction is a state of protection you had from your past and your childhood of some sort.
Yo, Chris, again, fire. there are unconscious things that can absolutely drive our behavior. And some of those things can stem from childhood. Some of those things might be evolutionary in nature. Some of those things might be developmental, physiological, whatever they are. But there are unconscious processes that can drive our behavior. And I think one of the roles of a therapist is to help you make the unconscious conscious so that you can begin unpacking, processing, and developing insight into your own motivations and what drives you. And so there are multiple, I think, roles of a therapist. And I'm not going to sit here and toot the therapist horn. From just a you perspective, find somebody you fit with. There's not a one size fits all sort of therapy, although some, try and do it that way. I think the most important thing with a therapist is find someone you vibe with, find someone who generally allows you to come on board and they come alongside you as opposed to just completely directing you and, sort of telling you what to do. You are collaborators. I think to me, that is what a therapist is. It is a collaborator and a person who helps uncover these insights, but they're not the ones that does the uncovering. They just go, hey, look over there, and you go, look over where, and you're like, oh, I've never looked over there before. And you develop the insight completely on your own. So multiple things a therapist can do.
The reason why you're going past your prefrontal cortex into the back of your brain of just like, no pause, just react. So if you can kind of calm that reaction, have a pause, understand why you're feeling a certain way, and react out of a choice of how you want to, feelings come up, but how you react can be a choice. So if you can kind of work on that, then it helps.
Oh, gosh, another good thing, pause. Build in a pause. Between stimulus and response, there's space. And we want to try and make that space as large as possible. So when you first notice, honestly, guys, let's say anger. First time you notice anger, pause. What's a good way to pause? Take one deep breath, then take another. Take 3. That space that you insert just from taking a few deep breaths and shifting your attention into your nose, out through your mouth. 1, that's going to calm your physiology. That's going to help with your heart rate. That's going to help with all these sort of physiological things that come along with getting angry. And then 2, it inserts that break, because when we become sort of reactionary, when we respond to something that we feel, more often than not, in hindsight, we look back and we want that behavior back. So pausing, breathing, calm the body, calm the mind, make a better decision in what you're about to do.
And a therapist can kind of help you dig into that, ask you deeper questions, really focus on like bringing parts out of you that you didn't really know were there. And it's helped me a lot. A lot of people are like, you must be fucked up if you go to a therapist. I'm like, that I just want to be better.
Let me pull back the curtain a little bit. Guys, you don't have to be fucked up to see a therapist. If you are noticing things within yourself, the first step is just noticing. Like noticing you may have this urge to talk to someone, but for whatever reason, whether it be societal or how you were raised or anything like that, you feel like you have to internalize, and then back to that metaphor of those beach balls and suppressing them, you have to push it down. If it has to do with your emotions and you don't feel like you have the tools to combat them, so you just suppress them, my man, go find someone to talk to. There are male therapists, not enough. So I highly recommend, if guys out there want meaning and purpose and a drive in life to help other men or young men, therapy is a great option. So go look at your local colleges or whatever.
Ability I've also learning, I'm just spitting random shit out at you right now. It's not just sharing hard shit, but allowing yourself to be seen in excitement and in joy and goofy and just being whatever is real to you. It's a lot of people really struggle with that, of being their true selves all the time, and it comes from these protections we put on in our childhoods for whatever we needed at the time. And now that we don't need it, it's still innate in us, and you need to kind of work through it.
I think that's an important thing to note. I think whenever people talk about sort of the male psychology, it's always about, suppressing certain emotions, more often than not anger, sadness, this or that. But also, I think being able to experience the full range of emotions is very important and doesn't really get talked about. I think whenever I think about my friends and how I know that they're my friends, it's because I can experience sort of the full range of emotions. My friends have seen me sad. They've seen me worried. They've seen me absolutely goofy. That's a majority of the time, I think. At least I'd like to think that. And they've seen me in love. They've seen me X, Y, and Z. And so to experience the full range of emotions is important. And if you can do that around a specific set of people, but let's say you can't do it around another set of people, start asking yourself questions. Why can't you? Why don't you feel safe to experience the range of emotions and begin to unpack that? And then maybe go talk to somebody. Go find a group. Go to the gym. Go lift something heavy.
How many times have you put on a face for the public and truly are kind of like, man, I'm hurting?
I can't count. No idea. I try and share when I can, but I know, like, I also don't feel an obligation anymore, and I did in the past, to share to the public how I feel. I try to help people, because I know when I do, people are like, I'm struggling too. But I got to focus on me too at the end of the day, and my family, my close friends, Courtney.
You don't have to put on a face whenever you go out in public. It is on you how you want to express your emotions. And I would say if you find yourself constantly putting on a face for somebody else, putting on a face at work, putting on a face for your spouse, your friends, whatever it is, I think that would be another good indicator of maybe needing to go and talk to somebody. And I think we should as dudes have spaces and have resources to go to. So I hope you all have resources. I hope you all are more willing now to go out and talk with somebody, because, C-Bum, if he is not sort of the pinnacle of like masculinity, but also he has these underlying emotional and intellectual traits that aren't often thought of in the same sort of sphere. If he can show these things, then I think we all should be able to too. So I hope you all like this episode. And if you did, throw me a comment, throw me a like, and I will catch you in the next episode for a mental skill, or hey, maybe another reaction video. Y'all have a good day.